Today, in this video, we're covering the top watches for bigger wrists coming in at over 42 mil. Welcome back to the Chisholm Hunter channel. My name is Harrison, as always. And a couple of weeks ago, I posted a video on the best watches for smaller wrists. And I had a couple of comments asking me to do the best watches for bigger wrists. So I listened to you guys, and this is what we're covering today. Right, so let's kick right into this video with number one. And at number one, we have the Seiko Sumo SPB 103. Seiko is an absolute icon in the industry. I feel like when people first start getting into luxury watches and they want their first automatic watch, they either go for a Tissot or they go for a Seiko. This Seiko Sumo comes in at 45 millimeters in diameter. It also comes in at 12.9 millimeters in thickness, which actually isn't too bad for the kind of case diameter of this watch. It actually is slimmer than I thought it'd be. The case length, or the lug to lug, comes in at 52.6 millimeters in diameter, and this watch comes in full stainless steel. This watch is water resistant to 20 bar. It is technically a diving watch, and it actually has sapphire crystal glass as well, which is kind of common. I think when you get over about 1 to 200 mark, sapphire crystal glass is kind of standard within the industry. Now, there are tons of different variations of this Seiko to choose between, but I quite like, personally, the green model. Now, this model does have a closed case back, concealing the movement within. The movement within is the caliber 6R35, and this is an automatic movement with 70 hours of power. This model also features the kind of iconic crown at the 4 o'clock mark, and this makes it iconically a Seiko. When you see this watch from a distance, you kind of know it's a Seiko because of that crown, and I like that. This watch comes in at £780. And on that note, let's move on to number two. At number two, we have an absolute icon from an absolutely iconic brand. Before the IWC Ingenieur was released, the IWC Big Pilot was the pinnacle of IWC. The Ingenieur kind of took the spotlight about a year ago just because of how damn sexy it is. But before that, it was the Big Pilot, because the Big Pilot has a ton of history behind it. And that brings us on to the IWC Big Pilot 7-day Power Reserve. Specifically, we're talking about the reference IW501015. This model comes in at 46.2 millimeters in diameter. This model is thick. It's a thick boy. And it also comes in at 15.4 millimeters in thickness, just adding to that thickness. But remember that it does have a 7-day Power Reserve with that added complication on the dial. It also has that iconic onion crown, which is this humongous crown at the right-hand side that makes it iconically an IWC Big Pilot. The movement of this watch is covered beneath the closed case back. It's the in-house caliber 52110, and this is an automatic movement. It has 168 hours of power. That's unbelievable. 250 components and 31 jewels. So as well as that 7-day Power Reserve, you also have the rotor spinning around in the back. That kind of just goes and stretches it out that little bit more. So this watch is brilliant, and you have a couple of color variations to choose between, but it's definitely prone to bigger wrists. And on that note, if you are looking for your next luxury watch, make sure you head to chisholmhunter.co.uk, where we are official stockist of most of the brands in this video, if not on this channel. And if you use the code CHSUB at the checkout, that's CHSUB, you get a 10% discount on selected lines. And that is my thank you to you guys for supporting this channel. And just, honestly, I couldn't have imagined getting here. This is my job now. It's just crazy. So seriously, thank you. At number three, we have a personal favorite of mine. It is the Panerai Submersible with the model number PAM01226. This has the white dial and the stainless steel bezel. Honestly, for some reason, Panerais just don't really suit being small. Weird to say, because everyone's getting smaller within the industry, but Panerai is one of the only brands, and I'd love to know if you agree with this. Panerai is one of the only brands that I feel just suit being big. If I was to buy a Panerai, I'd get a big Panerai because it's a Panerai? I don't really know. This model comes in full stainless steel with that iconic stainless steel bezel, and I love stainless steel bezels because they're a dying breed in the industry. They seriously are. They're getting replaced with ceramic, and I don't think they should. I think they look so classy. Now, this model does come in at 44 millimeters, but because of that kind of cushion cut case and also the safety latch where the crown is, it's really iconic to Panerai actually. It makes it look that bit bigger. I would honestly say it looks more like a 45 or 46 millimeter watch. The movement in this model is the automatic P.900 caliber. This has 23 joules, beats at a frequency of 28,800 VPH, has a 3-day power reserve, and 171 components. This is also a thick boy. To add to that, this watch also goes to water resistances, or is water resistant to 300 meters, and has a green rubber strap, which I feel plays wonderfully with the white dial. It's kind of like a dark khaki green. They've really nailed the green. I feel like watches, again, I'd love to know if you agree with this, but watches tread a fine line when getting the right shade of green. If they go too bright, it just looks a little bit cheap. But when they get it right, kind of dark forest and olive greens, it looks so great. Next up at number 4 is a watch that I actually filmed in Finland probably about 6 months ago. We were testing it to the limit, and I mean to the limit. It was legitimately minus 30 in Finland. This is the Casio Mudmaster. Now you do have a couple of Mudmasters to choose between when you're looking at this model, but this is probably one of Casio's most rugged watches. And I know what you're thinking, all Casio watches are rugged, and yes, you'd be right, but this one is designed specifically for the purpose of trying to destroy it and failing. This model comes in at 56 millimeters in diameter and 18 millimeters in thickness. This is a thicker boy than the previous two, and the previous two were damn thick. This model actually has a fiber carbon guard structure, and that essentially protects it against all shock, all resistance, and essentially you could probably run over this model with a car and it'd be fine. It's water resistant to 200 meters. Of course, is fully digital because it is a Casio. Of course, being a Casio, there's just tons of functionality in this watch to play with. I mean, you name it, this watch probably has it. And to sum it up, it's indestructible. Next up, we have the King's big brother. We have the Omega Seamaster Planet Ocean 600 meters. And this watch comes in at 43.5 millimeters, but it still is very, very thick because of that 600 meter water resistance and also because of the movement. It comes in at 16.1 millimeters in thickness, and it has a lug-to-lug of 49 millimeters. I would say that this is the tool watch in Omega's arsenal. I think if you want the more sexy design aesthetic, that's where people side with the Seamaster. But if you want the functionality of that tool watch, then you go with the 600 meters Seamaster. Just to tell a story about that for a second, we actually had a podcast with a gentleman called Brian Wood. Now, Brian Wood, or Woody as he likes to be called, actually fought in the Battle of Danny Boy. He was a soldier, and he was actually quite a famous soldier. There was actually a movie adapted from his book, which is pretty awesome, about his life and about the Battle of Danny Boy. Now, in the podcast, the Into the Mind podcast with Brian, I wore my Seamaster because it was a big occasion. And can you guess what watch he wore? Because it wasn't this. It was the Seamaster 600. Because it is a tool watch. The movement of this watch is the Omega Caliber 8900. This is a self-winding movement with a coaxial escapement. It's certified by Master Chronometer and approved by Metas. It has 60 hours of power. As an all-round package, this just is the tool watch's tool watch. It is absolutely phenomenal, but it's definitely not for the faint-hearted. Now, taking a little bit of a step down from that sizing, and people are going to kill me here because I talk about this watch far too much, but it is the Omega Seamaster. Because of that helium escape valve on the left-hand side, it looks a little bit more spread than normal watches coming in at 42 millimeters, making it look bigger on the wrist, making it more appropriate for bigger wrists. So this is the Omega Seamaster Professional 300 meter diver. This watch comes in at 42 millimeters, comes in at a thickness of 13.6 millimeters, which is still quite thick for a diver, but comparatively to the big boys that we've been talking about, maybe not as thick, and it has a 49.9 millimeter lug-to-lug. Now, I won't go too much into the detail of this watch because I do it in more or less every video, but it's quite a good segue into the wrist check. What is on your wrist today? Please let me know in the comments. I love seeing all the weird and wonderful watches that you guys have on. I currently have, I won't talk about it. Let's just move on. Up next, we have a more affordable, big, chunky boy. This is the Tissot C-Star 2000 Professional Powermatic 80. It comes in at just above £1,000, and it is a brilliant start if you're looking for a diver that doesn't break the bank. It comes in at 46 millimeters, has the Powermatic AT movement, which of course is a mass-produced movement, but it has 80 hours of power, and just because it's mass-produced, again, I've said this in tons of videos, but just because it's mass-produced does not mean it's a bad movement. There's a couple of different variations to choose between when looking at this watch, but what I love in particular about this watch is the depth in the dial. It has this beautiful black to blue gradient running through it, if that's the model you go for, and it has waves running through that dial. And for this price, essentially you're getting your entry-level, pretty massive tool watch in a 600-meter water-resistant diving watch. To have all that detail on it is pretty amazing. Moving quickly on, or else I'd talk about that watch all day, we actually have another watch that I filmed in Finland. It's a chunky monkey, but I'm obsessed with this brand. Like literally obsessed. This is the Glashütte Original CQ Chrono. The CQ Chrono comes in at 43.2 millimeters in diameter and 16.95 millimeters in height. It's by no means a small watch, but remember it is a chrono model. And chrono models, typically speaking, are that little bit bigger because there's extra complications in there and essentially because it's a chrono model. Something that I absolutely adore about the Glashütte brand in general is that 95% of their movements are produced and made in-house. That's unbelievable. We actually went to the Glashütte original factory for a factory visit, and they were talking us through the movements. Now, typically within brands, luxury watch brands, they buy parts from here, there, and everywhere and put them all together and then add their flair to that movement. Whereas Glashütte Original are 95% in-house in Glashütte. Glashütte? It's a funny word, isn't it? Glashütte? I feel like that's so weird. The movement in this watch is, of course, as I said, Glashütte's in-house movement, and it has 70 hours of power. It beats at a frequency of 28,800 VPH and actually has an open case back so that you can see into that movement. And honestly, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, and I know that you guys are going to be like, shut up, you're going on about it too much, but just look at the movement and it's just, yeah. Up next is a watch brand that I'm seriously going down a rabbit hole with. I've never had one into film, but I really want to get one into film because, let me just talk about it. This is the Parmigiani Tonda PF Sports Chronograph. Look at that dial. Look at that watch. Look at that strap. Look at how it plays in unison. That's just beauty. That's beauty right there. The case diameter of this watch comes in at 42 millimeters. So again, it's on the smaller side of this watch spectrum that we've been going through in terms of bigger models, but it does look and feel that bit bigger because it is, again, a chrono model. The pushers and the crown at the right-hand side stretch it out a little bit and it kind of wears bigger on the wrist. This model comes in at 12.9 millimeters in thickness. To get a chrono model at 12.9 mil, it's pretty unbelievable. This model has the caliber PF070, and that is COSC certified. This model has 65 hours of power, beats at a frequency of 36,000 VPH, has 315 components and 42 jewels. And that overall movement comes in at 6.95 mil in thickness. 6.95. Just try to imagine that amount of components shoved in to like that. This is why I love watches. This model, getting into a little bit of ramble here, but this model is actually extremely hard to find and extremely hard to pick up. Parmigiani's numbers are unbelievably low, and the more that I learn about this brand, the more that I honestly just fall in love with them. So have a look, they're awesome. At number 10, we have the GOAT in the industry. You could call them the GOAT because they are the oldest watch brand in the world. Yeah, legitimately in the world. They're not the oldest watch brand in continuous production. That goes to Vacheron, but they're the oldest watch brand in the world. This is the Blancpain 50 Fathoms Flyback. This is a chronograph model, and it comes in at 43.6 mil in diameter. Now, again, I'm going to repeat myself here, but because it is a chrono model, it spreads out that little bit more on the wrist. It looks that little bit bigger. The movement in this model is fully automatic, and it's the F385, and this has 50 hours of power. One of the things that I love about Blancpain is that they remain Blancpain, they don't lose themselves in the hype of other brands. A lot of the times in the industry, you'll see trends kind of repeating themselves throughout the line of brands. Blancpain, throughout the years, have kept their designs. They've tweaked them, very, very tiny, but they've kept them very, very similar. They've not gone, oh, we're going to bring out a 70s inspired, AP looking watch just to get hype. They continue to just go down their own path. And I like that. Thank you guys so much for watching this Chisholm Hunter video. My name is Harrison, as always. And if you have enjoyed, please consider hitting that subscribe button. I'd really, really appreciate it. Or follow our Instagram at Chisholm Hunter Watches, or my Instagram at HB Life Lens. I am a photographer if you want to see some watch photography. Or, this is an exciting one, our podcast. It's not new anymore. It's kind of like a year old, but it's doing really well. And that's really thanks to you guys. It's called the Into the Mind podcast. So thank you guys so much. And on that note, I'll see you soon.